DNA evidence and Johnny Depp, the three convicts you're about to meet, had both on their side, and that proved to be enough to set them free from prison today. But 18 years ago, when they were rebel teens in their town accused of a gruesome satanic murder of three young boys, DNA tests weren't available, and there were no celebrities around to take up their cause. Here's our Jim Avila for our series, Crime and Punishment.
It's a case so stunning, so controversial, it became a major cause celeb, with actors and musicians like Johnny Depp, the Dixie Chicks' Natalie Maines, and Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder.
I'm also here to show my support for the West Memphis Three.
Speaking out for the defendants, three little Cub Scouts hog-tied and left in an Arkansas ditch, and three teenagers enamored with satanic rituals arrested. It made headlines all over the country, even becoming the subject of three HBO documentaries called Paradise Lost.
We were really the obvious choice because we stood out.
I didn't kill these three little boys.
The celebrities fighting for the teens' release claimed the kids were railroaded because of their mullets, dark clothes, and fascination with the occult.
It makes me scared that, this could happen to any of us.
And it did happen to these three young outcasts, who came to be known as the West Memphis Three after their hometown along the Arkansas-Tennessee border. Damian Eccles, Jesse Miskelly, and Jason Baldwin, teenagers then, in their mid-30s today, convicted of what many labeled a literal witch hunt, no physical evidence against them, imprisoned for nearly 2 decades.
I'm just tired. This has been going on for over 18 years.
In the beginning, we told them nothing but the truth, that we were innocent, and they sent us to prison for the rest of our lives.
Earlier today, there's Damian Eccles.
But today, a bizarre final chapter with a stunning reversal. 4 years after ABC News first broke word of DNA evidence that could exonerate them, the West Memphis Three walked free.
The legal tangle that has become known as the West Memphis Three case is now finished.
Does anyone believe that if the state had even the slightest continuing conviction that they were guilty, that they would let these men free today?
It was 1993. The three second graders are found drowned in a ditch in West Memphis. It was before Arkansas could handle DNA testing, no physical evidence to link the teens to the crime.
They were the unusual kids in town, dressed in black. They listened to heavy metal music. They were goths before goths were fashionable, and so they were easy targets.
But one of the teenagers, Jesse Miskelly, borderline mentally disabled with a documented low IQ, confessed after 4 hours of police interrogation, implicating his friends. He would later recant, but the town was already convinced the three devil-worshipping kids were guilty.
There seemed to be a whole scare in the community around a satanic panic.
I hope y'all really believe in your master, the Satan. He's not going to help you. To me, this place as I stand is like hell on earth.
All three would go to prison. Damian Eccles, called the ringleader, was sentenced to death row, held in solitary confinement for a decade. Johnny Depp became so convinced of Eccles' innocence, he gave voice to his prison journal.
I can't remember what it's like to walk as a human being anymore.
Then, finally, new hope. New attorneys forced the state to perform DNA tests not available in 1993 on hair from the victims. The findings are dramatic. None of it is a match to the imprisoned West Memphis Three. And in fact, the DNA points in a different direction.
I don't think they would have let them walk free if they didn't understand that this would be a very powerful defense. Because not only would the prosecutors have a very difficult time linking these three to the crime, the defense could very legitimately point to someone else, someone specific, and say it's more likely that he did it than my clients.
Which brings us to today, in one of the most shocking and even confusing exonerations seen in the U.S. courtroom. the West Memphis Three would be allowed to walk out of prison, but prosecutors agreed to sign off on the deal only if the defendants would plead guilty.
Guilty plea today? Guilty.
I'm pleading guilty.
Normally, a judge will say, you can plead guilty, but you need to tell me about what you did. You need to say that you did it. This is different.
This is totally different. I mean, this is the defendant saying, almost with a wink and a nod, yeah, we'll plead guilty, in quotes. But the reality is, they're saying, we didn't do it.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect by any means, but we can still try to clear our names. The only difference is now we can do it from the outside instead of having to sit in prison and do it.
In fact, it was a deal the youngest of the West Memphis Three first resisted, wanting to fight for total exoneration, until reminded that his childhood friend Damien Echols had been in solitary confinement for 10 years, and at one point was 3 weeks from execution back in 1994.
He didn't want to take this deal in the beginning, and I recognize and acknowledge that he did do it almost entirely for me.
Mr. Crockett?
For Nightline, Jim Avila, ABC News, New York.
This is a call for an uprising. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to cover the West Memphis Three because I know a lot of teens and younger people listening to this channel aren't aware of it. And I also know that there's a lot of people who are older who are familiar with this trial who probably were duped into the brainwashing thanks to propaganda films like Paradise Lost, which conveniently, HBO sends out a camera crew to prove the innocence of 3 children who were involved in satanic ritual killings as well as rape of the children. And we see people today, every time I even mention it, I've mentioned it in a few Johnny Depp videos that I've done, people go crazy. You didn't study the trial. You don't know what's going on, because people have devoted their life to studying this. I don't need to devote my life to studying it. I've seen the films. I've read the autopsy reports. I've looked at all the information that's been given, and I've watched all of the other propaganda movies by people like Peter Jackson, who made Lord of the Rings, who took the time out of their day, or their lives, I should say, to make movies trying to profess the innocence of these people. Eddie Vedder, Johnny Depp, Marilyn Manson. Enough warlocks, witches, and scumbags for me to know that this is clearly the occult helping out the occult. And I personally believe that there's deeper roots involved with Damien Echols and some type of relationship as far as bloodlines go to Aleister Crowley himself. Now, what's really sad about this story is that whenever you hear about the West Memphis Three, you hear about the actual killers who are portrayed as the victims. You never hear about these 3 young boys whose lives were stolen from them because of satanic ritual abuse. People trying to perform Aleister Crowley's black magic on them by raping these children. They found sperm on the kids' pants. They originally said that these children were raped, and this entire story got manipulated because what happened was the media got control of it, Hollywood got control of it, and that's all they have to do. All they have to do is make a propaganda piece to sway people's, perception of what the story really is, right? So instead of being about these 3 kids who were brutally murdered, the story turned into what? Oh, these 3 kids were profiled because they had long hair, they were gothic, they wore Metallica shirts, they were weird, and they were outcasts, so they were framed by the police because they fit the character description of what, a murderer would look like, or, who could be responsible. We needed to pin it on someone. That is the entire story around it. Them blaming the cops for putting it on them because of how they looked and the fact that they had Aleister Crowley's books and followed his books. And it's deeper than that. But that's how lightly they can make the story so people go, oh, yeah, that's not fair. I used to be an outcast and wear a Marilyn Manson or Metallica t-shirt too. They must be innocent. Never was really about the kids. And that's what breaks my heart about these stories. And these people are now walking free. despite their guilt, walking free. And every time you hear them interviewed, what are they talking about? Oh, poor me. I was innocently put on death row because of how I looked and the stuff that I liked, which included Satanism and the occult and witchcraft and pedophilia. But nope, they walk free. Despite Damien Eccles' connection, he is a member of the OTO in Arkansas. A member of the OTO, Aleister Crowley's OTO. On the stand, listen to what he talks about. He made a blood oath with Aleister Crowley. These three boys made a blood oath, a contract with Crowley.
You're familiar with a fellow named Aleister Crowley?
I know who he is. I know who he is.
Aleister Crowley is a guy that, based on his writings, believes in human sacrifice, doesn't he?
He also believed he was God, though. So.
Okay. And he also had writings that indicated that children were the best type of human sacrifice, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. But Aleister Crowley doesn't have any particular significance to you?
I know who he is. I've read a little bit about him, but I've never read anything by him.
Let me show you a copy of some documents. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
It was this paper I had on different alphabets for like translations where you could write things that nobody could read, and this was one of the forms.
Oh, okay. Well, where did you have that at? When did you do that? Write those things out?
Sometime before I was arrested, I guess.
Okay. Are you sure that you hadn't done those since you were arrested while you've been staying in jail?
I don't know, I might have.
Well, whose names are written on that document?
Mine, Jason's, my son's, one that says Aleister Crowley, and
Wait, who?
Aleister Crowley.
Now, this is a document that you've written while you've been waiting in jail for trial, right?
If you say so.
Well, you wrote it, correct? That's your writing?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You recall when you wrote it?
Not really.
Well, what I'm going to ask you is that this Damien Seth Azariah Eccles, your son, he wasn't born until after you were placed in jail, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So if you've got his name listed on this document, then this document had to be generated after he was born, right?
Yes.
Okay. So this is something you've written since you've been sitting in here in jail waiting for trial.
Yes.
And what you were doing was writing out various names in different type alphabets, correct?
From the way it looks here, I was practicing trying to memorize them.
Okay. And one of the names that you picked out to write about was this fellow named Aleister Crowley, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that just a total coincidence? You just pulled his name out of the air?
No, it's just the same book that I had with the different alphabets in it. It also had stuff about him in it.
Well, did you have the book out there at the time you were doing this?
This was just from what I remembered myself, where I was practicing, trying to memorize, get it all in my head.
So you were going over it, working on it in your head, and at that point in time, you write all this down from memory?
Mm-hmm.
The people that are listed on here, you've got your name on here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Jason Baldwin, which is your best friend, right? And then you've got Damien Seth Azariah Eccles. That's your son?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then the only other name on this document, besides yourself, your best friend, and your son, is Aleister Crowley, correct?
Yes, sir.
you hear somebody say something about the murder of the three little boys?
Yes, sir. I heard Damian Nichols say that he killed the three boys.
Where were you? Was he saying that to you, or what were you doing?
I was walking by with my friend.
Oh, Jody Medford.
All right, again, this witness is requested not to be photographed.
Jody, I want to direct your attention to May of 1993, after the murders of the three little boys. Did you have occasion to be at the softball field and hear a comment in regard to the murders?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell the jury first what you heard.
He said, I killed the three little boys, and before I turn myself in, then I'm going to kill two more, and I already have one of them picked out.
You didn't recognize anybody else that was with him?
I saw Jason Baldwin there.
Anybody else that was with him?
I saw Jason Baldwin there.
Margaret, two teenage girls took the stand this morning, and they said they heard Damian Echols confess to the murders of three 8-year-old boys last May. One of the girls said she overheard Damian Echols say, I killed the three boys, and I'm going to kill two more. I already have one picked out.
Now, what they've tried to do is pin this on family members because there's very weird family members attached to this story. You know, there's people who fit the stereotype of an abusive parent, possibly a rapist, and all this stuff. And what happened was Depp, Manson, all of these guys got together, hired lawyers to run DNA tests on the shoelaces and all this stuff to get these kids off the hook. But in reality, what this was about was getting fellow Satanists off the hook. And what's sad about that is these Satanists have a greater bond than us Christians have. We're supposed to be the ones who love our neighbor and love one another, but all we ever see in the Christian community is attacks on each Christian. Oh, he's not reading the King James Bible. Oh, he's not doing this. Nobody talks about this stuff. Oh, a call for an uprising might curse once in a while and raise his voice. He must not be a real Christian. This is what these lukewarm Christians care about, fighting other Christians, causing division amongst us. And this is what these Satanists do. Bail each other out, have each other's back, are loyal to each other. And this story obviously has deeper roots because they wouldn't just, think about all the murders that happen around the world, okay? They're going to send HBO to cover a story like this and to make the whole thing about these poor kids, and then bring in all these famous people to persuade the audience into believing that these kids were innocent. There is a reason that they had to get them out. And I personally believe the reason is that Echols is related in some way or form to Crowley, and he's a high-ranking witch, or whatever you want to call, high-ranking Satanist, high-ranking pansy as far as I'm concerned. You can see now that he's written a new book about magic. That's all he talks about, Satanism and magic. You see all his lame, satanic symbols on his Twitter page. Oh yeah, he doesn't follow Crowley. Here's a picture of him doing the infamous pose that Crowley does. Here he is talking about love one another, right? What do I always say? That these Satanists are coming in the name of love. The Antichrist is coming in the name of love. And that's how people are being deceived because they're going, how could you be against love? They're all for love because it's a part of the deception. Love for them is tolerance. They want you to be tolerant to them and accepting of what they do. They're not going to tell you that they're involved in pedophilia and all this stuff. They're going to come across as loving, caring, intelligent people. It's a scam. That's exactly what it is. So this guy comes out now. He's got magic books. And somehow nobody goes crazy and points to the teachings of Crowley, how they follow these teachings, how he's in the OTO, and specifically how these celebrities got him off the hook and his friends off the hook for this murder. They never talk about these kids. Some documentaries will come out saying, well, we think it was the father because something on the shoelace. It's all propaganda. There were people on the witness stand who actually said they heard Damian Echols confess to the murdering of the three children because he was starting his own cult. He was bragging about this, but despite multiple people going on the stand and saying that, they say, oh, they made it up. They had a vendetta against him, or they make up these stories around him when they're these people have more guilt than OJ, Okay, but you hear people constantly when this story comes up 100% believe that they're innocent because of some stupid propaganda piece that HBO produced to try to show that Satanists are getting stereotyped and labeled. And of course, when you attach these celebrities to it, that's how they get the masses to go along with it. Oh, the Dixie Chicks think he's innocent. They must be innocent. Oh, Johnny Depp from Pirates of the Caribbean and 21 Jump Street, he thinks they're innocent. They gotta be innocent. Johnny wouldn't do that. Common theme with these people, all are Satanists. No big deal, right? Then they change up, all the evidence and stuff gets changed up. Police initially suspected the boys had been raped. Later, expert testimony disputed this finding despite trace amounts of sperm DNA found on a pair of pants recovered from the scene. And then they somehow pass it off as saying that it was from animals, that animals were, all over the bodies. I mean, it's unbelievable, unbelievable. And these people walk free. They walk free and get away with this stuff, and nobody cares. The story turns into these poor boys were, they were innocently convicted. You could see that they're scumbags for starters. I mean, pretty easy to see if you watched Paradise Lost and watched the trial that they're scumbags, trash. And Damien Echols walks around getting matching tattoos with Johnny Depp and Eddie Vedder. Don't you see how they all work together? How they all have control over all of this stuff? They're above the law. That's what they believe. They're above the law. We're not. We're going to them. We're crap. We're nothing to them. And this is just a mockery of our judicial system. It's a mockery of Christians. It's a mockery to all of us. Everyone should be outraged about this. And this is an old story, but you know what? I had it on my mind recently. I was thinking about it. Every time I see Eccles' face, I just want to put my hand through my computer screen because I know guilt when I see it. I know manipulation when I hear it. Listen to every interview the guy's done. He's a liar. He's a liar and he's a fraud. But they talk about Crawley like, oh, he's wonderful. And he goes, oh, I'm not really connected to him. He said Aleister Crawley was the person who designed the magic. That magic be spelled with a K. He was also a big part of the reason I was sentenced to death. That's what he says. Meanwhile, he's in the OTO. He made a blood oath contract with the guy. He goes on to say, I was the town weirdo. I dressed in all black, had long hair, and listened to heavy metal music. As if this wasn't enough to make me a suspect in a small, hardcore, fundamentalist town in the midst of the era of satanic panic, I also practiced magic. Some of the most damning evidence brought against me during the trial was my love of knowledge of Crawley. And the fact that I own Stephen King novels, right? So people hear that, they go, well, I own a Stephen King novel. Stephen King novels and Crawley's teachings are a little bit far apart. Even though you're better off taking every Stephen King novel that ever existed and dumping manure on it. So again, this is how they've used mind control. This is what they've done to people. This is how they can get Satanists and witches off the hook. By using the television, by creating propaganda pieces, by attaching what? False idols to the story to try to prove the innocence of someone. Wow, I've never seen so many celebrities care so much about some cause. Have you? There's people dying around the world. People in third world countries who can't eat, who just die of starvation. There's so much crime and so much stuff that goes on with amongst the elites, which never get talked about, of course, because these people are amongst it. But this specific story, boy, really band everyone together to hire lawyers out of their own pocket to get these kids that they never met off the hook for a crime they clearly were guilty for. Clearly, there were no other suspects at the time, but it's easy to point a finger at creepy parents when the father of, one of them is just an absolute, he probably was put under MK Ultra or something after the whole thing went down because that guy was out of his mind, Byers. But the whole story is just unreal. This is the stuff that boils my blood. Well, I guess you could say everything does, right? Because pretty much every day I'm yelling and ranting about this stuff. But I just see this doesn't mean all Christians need to unite in a sense, but it's just more of a wake-up call as to who the real enemy is. These people are murdering kids, and all I see are Christians attacking Christians about what, but you don't sound Christian. Like, are you reading a King James only? If not, you're not a real Christian. Because it's such a waste of time. It's not speaking through the Spirit. These are the people that we need to point a finger at. 100 years ago, this would never have happened. These people would have been hung. They would have been run up a tree. Now they get off the hook for doing it. And all they have to do is bring out their witches and warlocks from Hollywood. And everybody goes, yeah, they were innocent. Look at the tattoos on their arms, all these satanic symbols on their arms and their hands, on their necks. This guy's got a pentagram on his stomach or his chest tattooed. But that's normal, right? He said, oh, I thought it was cool. Oh, right. He thought a pentagram was cool. That's why he got it tattooed on his chest, just like the Satanic Temple uses the pentagram, and they use the same excuse, right? Oh, it's nothing to do with black magic. We just love it. We think it's cool. Yeah, sure. Guess we were all born yesterday. Well, guess what? I wasn't. And this fight is not over. I'm taking the fight to these people. I know there's so much stuff going on. There's so many things to cover. I started this channel to go after Satanists, okay, to expose Satanism, Zionism, all of these things that are involved in the New World Order. But specifically, my blood has been boiling more and more over the last year, over what's happened with the after-school Satan program, with the Satanic Temple, with people like this scumbag Eccles walking the street, having his own podcast, talking about magic, promoting black magic, promoting Satanism, lying, and people falling into the deception and then going, well, we preach love here. Listen to this guy call for an uprising. He yells, he screams, sounds like a hateful maniac. Yeah, well, in a story, I haven't heard Eccles or any of these guys come out and talk about these kids who were murdered and go, oh, these poor kids, these poor kids. No, it's about them. You know why? Because they killed the kids. That's pretty clear. So go ahead, bring in the Dixie Chicks. These three male witches known as the Dixie Chicks. Bring in Marilyn Manson, this pedo creep. Bring them all in to prove your innocence. You're not going to fool those of us who have discernment and those of us who are awake. And I want to keep exposing them. I want to go after them. I'd love to have Eccles on my channel. I'd love to. Come on if you're out there. Come on for an interview. The interview will be me asking you about Crawley, asking you about your tendencies to molest young children and use black man. Of course you won't come on. I can't get anyone to come on my channel, to be honest. I see all these channels that get interviews with these people. Nobody wants to talk to me. My channel is only bigger than most of these channels, but hey, I don't blame people. I'd be afraid to talk to me too. Because they know that truth is going to get pulled out of them. They're not going to be able to sit here and deflect crap on me. They're not going to be able to sit here and ping pong stuff back and forth because I'm going to grill them. That's why nobody comes on. Nobody asks to be interviewed on here who's involved with any of this stuff.